to this episode of Kenya Wins, the voice of a rising nation. This is a brand new podcast and a brand new episode. So because it's brand new, I have to do an introduction. So this is episode 00 of Kenya Wins. So I'll start with my own introduction. I am Paul K. Njuru, like I've said. K stands for knowledge. And I was born in Laikipia in a small village called Madhenya. And right now I live in Kiambu County, and I've been living here for some time now. I am a self-taught historian and political scientist. Kenya Wins, the subject of our episode, is a politics and history podcast, or a history and politics podcast. Let me start with history, because the history is the Hiyo Ndio Imebeba podcast. So why do this now? I'll start by giving a small personal experience, because last year, the whole of last year, I was doing German, Deutsch. I used to go for evening classes every day for the whole of last year. Nikasoma from A1 mpaka nikafika B2. That's a very high level of competency in German. And my goal, I was thinking, I might need to leave this country. But upon further reflection, towards the end of last year, at the beginning of this year, I decided, no, I will not go. I'll stay here, because however good you might think you might think Europe is, this is our own country. This is our own country. And it is our only country. Wale wazungu waliotutawala wako na mataifa mengi wanakoweza kupotelea kwao nyumbani kukuweza pata shida. For instance, take Americans, all British people. A British person can comfortably move to the US, they can move to Australia, they can move to Canada without needing to change any aspect of their life too much, without needing to learn a new language, without needing to learn a new culture, because they are within the Western culture, Western civilization, and a very familiar culture, similar political institutions, and similar political structures. So for these people, wanaweza potelea kwingi sana. Mataifa mengi ya wazungu, they are doing very well. But for us, as Kenyans, and in any case, as Africans, we only have one country. If it doesn't do well, then God help us, because we have nowhere else to go. Because if you look at what happened to Somalia when it failed in the 1990s, the Somalians became refugees all over the world. And now you can see they have all these problems everywhere they go. So I'd like to end this introduction with a small story I heard from Wangari Maathai, professor. And it's called The Forest and the Fire. And the story goes like this. One day, the forest was on fire. And all the animals, of course, ran away from the fire and stood at a distance as they watched it engulf their former home. Now, they stood there helplessly and frustrated, wondering, what can we do? But then there was this small hummingbird that would go to the river, fetch some water with its beak, come drop it on the fire, go back, do the same. And all these other big animals watched it and wondered, why the hell is it doing this? Its effect is so small. And they asked the hummingbird, and the hummingbird answered, I am doing the best that I can. So let us do the best that we can. I know the situation is not very good in our country. Disillusionment, frustration, almost giving up. And we are bombarded every day with terrible news, bad news, big scandals. You might feel overwhelmed. But let us do the little we can. And the little I can is to add my voice to the conversation on the development of this country. If the little you can is to vote wisely, do it. To educate others, do it. Because for sure we only have one country and we are not going anywhere. We have to take our country back. So now, Kenya Wins is a history and politics podcast. I'll start with the why history, because history is one of my favorite areas of study, and I've done a lot of self-study on history. And wajua Wakenya wengi viongozi, mara kwa mara utasikia wakisema, when the history of this country is written, let it show that blah, 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 blah. This happened and that, and we did this. Now, the time is now. The time to write that history is now. And we are the people to shape that history, how that history is written, to shape how that history is written. We are not a young country anymore. We got our own internal government in 1963. In fact, this year, June, we will be celebrating 63 years of internal self-government. We were a small country of 8.5 million people. Now we are a big country of 50 million people. And projections show that by 2050, we will be a country of 80 million people. Now, one may ask ourselves, we might want to ask ourselves, have we achieved the independence dream? The independence experiment that we set out to do. Tukapigana na wazungu, watu wengi wakakufa, wakateswa, fighting for this country. But you look around and realize that 63 years later, our independence has turned so toxic that living this country now is seen as an achievement. One of the more popular photographs on social media ni ile picha watu wanapigwa pale JKIA wakitoka, ile inakuwa na ile kwa ile bana ya kwa heri Kenya, because huku ni mateso, tunatesana huku. So for sure our independence experiment has been a failure, and my role as a historian is to reflect back on the journey that we've had as a country and point out the long arc of failure, like the origins of this failure. I follow several history podcasts. For instance, I love very much what Enoch Sikolia is doing with the Kenyan History podcast. The Kenyan History is kind of episode-based. Like they look at singular episodes and then tell you what happened. But Kenya Wins, our niche, and what I will be doing is more agenda-driven and narrative-driven, because I'm looking at the longer arc of history to trace the source of our problems. So that requires humility from both myself as a host and from the listeners to acknowledge that, first of all, there's a problem in this country, and the problems are structural. They cannot really be blamed on a single person or a single group. Okay, if single people did specific things that made the problems worse, but the problems are structural. What I mean by a structural problem is a problem that is foundational. It goes back to the foundation of the thing. And without changing the foundation, you might not solve the problem. For instance, if you're building a wooden house, you start by digging holes, and then you plant poles in the holes. And then you connect beams to the poles, and that comes up with the skeleton of the house. So that is the structure of a wooden house. And now that structure is fixed. You cannot convert the wooden house into a stone house because the structure only lends itself to a wooden house. So if you want to build a stone house, you have to start afresh, create a new foundation that can support a stone house. So that is what a structural problem is. It's a problem that goes back to the foundation, and it is the framework within which we work. So that is the historical angle of this podcast, and it's very important kwa sababu hiyo history nimesema ndio imebeba podcast. Politics is important because it shapes history. And we have to admit that we are very, very honestly in a good position as Kenya, because we are one of the few countries in Africa, in this continent. We have 54 countries in Africa. But out of those 54, maybe about 6 or 7 or maybe 8, maximum 8 countries can change the direction of their development by voting. And we are one of those countries. You can talk about Botswana, Ghana, you can talk about not Namibia, Zambia, Malawi, Benin, Mauritius, Nigeria, and Senegal. Those are countries that can change the direction of their country through voting. In our neighborhood, we have none. Look at South Sudan. South Sudan has never held an election since they got their independence in 2011. Look at Ethiopia. Nobody knows what goes on in Ethiopia. Things just happen. There is war sometimes. There is peace sometimes. But not really a democracy. Somalia, it's barely a country. Nothing works in Somalia. Ukiangalia Tanzania, mama anatawala huko. Na CCM imekuwa ikitawala tangu uhuru wao. And there is no hope of removing CCM currently from power. Uganda, Museveni na jeshi lake la National Resistance wanatawala na wamekuwa kitawala Uganda kwa miaka mingi. Now you can see they are trying to groom the sun. Rwanda, oh God, Kagame has been in power all those years. He gets 99% of the vote every time. Look at Eritrea. They never had an election since 1993 when they got their independence. One of the most failed states in the world, and it's so underreported. Its failure is so underreported. Djibouti, another dictatorship, tin pot. They have had just 2 presidents, the current president and the former president, who was the anchor to the current president, then akaachia the nephew in 1999. The guy gets also 99% of the vote all the time. So we are unique in that respect. So we have to take our role seriously as voters, because we can truly change we can truly change the direction of this country through voting. And all those years, we've changed it for the worse. We've seemed, especially 2022, and I have to admit I was part of the problem. And we've changed it for the worse. If we can make it worse, we can make it better. So let us empower ourselves using knowledge and using rational thinking to try and change the direction of this country. So that is the rationale of Kenya Wins, the Voice of a Rising Nation. We will do 3 shows every week. On Tuesday, I will do the history show. I will start with a series that I'm calling the 7 greatest historical mistakes that Kenya has ever done. And these are foundational mistakes. And then I'll run that series concurrently with our neighborhood series. Our neighborhood series will look at the history of Kenya with our neighbors. Next week, we start with Somalia, the greatest security threat to Kenya. On Wednesday, I will do the politics show. The aim of the politics show is to look at the political events that have happened in the week and then analyze them using now my own experience and the experience of history. What has history taught us about what happens in politics in this country? So that is Tuesday. That's Wednesday. On Thursday, I will do commentary show. I respond to comments made by followers of the podcast and respond to emerging social issues, so social commentary. So that will be the format of the show. So I'm looking forward to growing with you, to hearing from you. So subscribe, hit the bell button, get notifications, comment, share the podcast. Let us grow together. I'm really, really excited about this. I've never really done content before. I used to casually comment on politics on Facebook, but this is my first serious attempt at commenting or adding my voice to the conversation. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. It's going to be a long journey, but I'm here for it. And I welcome you to join me in building a community of Kenya winners, the voice of a rising nation. So asanteni sana, Mungu awabariki. Tutaendelea kuwa pamoja inshallah. Wacha tutaonana kwa episode 1. This was episode 00. So thank you so much and God bless you.